one of the main things is you want to make sure that you do not pick first as Aamon, because you have people like Barrett's and Roger who are going to ruin your day. So make sure as Aamon, you need to pick last. And there's some other tanky heroes that they can use, like maybe they can use a Martis, or they can possibly use a Boxia. But in the current meta, Roger and Barrett's are probably your biggest threats. So whenever I start, I like to make sure I know who the EXP, jungler, and tank is. So that's why I like to take a quick look at the scoreboard, and you really should, so you know what's going on, what's going to happen in the game, and what you should be doing for your first build, first few items that you build. And the buff I'm going for is the red buff, because at the beginning, really, you're only using your first and second skill, and Aamon's passive is that basic attacks within the first few seconds after using a skill reduces cooldowns, and you'll find that the way he works, as long as you're attacking a creep, you don't really have to worry about the cooldown of your first and second skill. So the blue buff is not really worth it to me. And as far as mana goes, I mean, you're not really gonna run out of mana at the beginning of the game. So I find your time is better spent just taking the red and then rotating to the river crab after. So after you take the river crab, you're gonna want to try to take the blue, and then from the blue, what you want to do is you want to go to the normal creep that's right next to the blue. But sometimes the enemy will put a lot of pressure on gold lane, so I'll just pop up the gold lane just to kind of back them off a little bit, and then I'll continue farming so that I can get 4, because without 4, Aamon's not really gonna be able to kill anybody. So you see me here, I'm getting my last creep so I can get 4, and then once I have 4, that is when the magic happens. That is when Aamon can really shine. See, I'm gonna go up and I'm gonna try to get the marksman. The marksman turns on vengeance, and then I ult him. I really wasn't that confident that I would get this kill, but hey, it worked out. So there's a lot of scenarios that can go on with the first turtle. Sometimes the turtle will not be contested because you got a lot of kills in your first gank, or you gank the middle too much, or sometimes the other team is just a little bit too timid to stop you, so you can just get a free turtle. But that's just idealistic thinking. Realistically, you won't always be able to take the turtle like I was in this situation. There are other situations where the first turtle will be a lot harder to get. It will be a lot harder to get. It will be a lot harder to get. So what you'll realize with Aamon is, especially when you're ahead, the enemy will tend to group up a lot, because Aamon is one of those heroes, kind of like a Natalia or a Hellkurt, that induces fear in the enemy team. Because the thing is, he moves around so fast and he's camouflaged, he's hard to see on the map, and he's just hard to keep track of. So people will tend to group. And then also, the thing is, while Aamon is fast and he's pretty mobile, he still is pretty susceptible to CC if he can get caught. So when Aamon's playing a game, teams will tend to stick together, and they'll do that so that if you do try to attack anybody, they'll CC you and try to slow you down. In these cases, it's probably better that you focus on farming and pushing, because Aamon can push pretty well. It's just that he can't take all the pressure from constant team fights. He's an assassin. He's just not built for it. And as you saw there, I kind of had to go in and out of the fight. Like, yeah, I was able to get that kill on Savannah, but I couldn't just stay there and keep fighting. I kind of had to just poke and go, because while Amon's basic attacks will reduce the cooldown on his ult. You really are only going to be able to cast it like every 20 seconds or so, even if you're constantly attacking. You just can't really just keep going like you could for like a Guinevere kind of hero. He's just not like that. So as Aamon, I like to clear bushes while camouflage. That way I can safely enter and I got a second before the enemy can jump out at me, assuming that their skills aren't, aimable skills. And then when you dive into the middle of a team, you want to try to stay camouflaged, either using your skill 1 prior on a minion or something, or you want to use your skill 2, just so that your enemy can't attack you. And then while you're in the middle of people, you can get a multi-kill with your ult. Your ult can hit multiple people, and as well as your basic attack, that can hit multiple people too. But as I mentioned before, you just want to be careful in these situations because Aamon can get CC'd and can die pretty quickly. So once you reach late game, what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to try to get the turtle. I mean, not the turtle, the Lord. Whoops. But the Lord is Aamon can kind of solo Lord. The thing is, he doesn't have the greatest lifesteal, so soloing the Lord is gonna be on the riskier side for you. So just make sure the enemy jungle is down or in sight. That way it doesn't get stolen. Because I've noticed as Aamon trying to take the Lord, it usually brings me down to about 2/3 to a half health, which late game is like almost nothing for Aamon. You can pretty much get one-shotted or two-shotted by just about anyone at that point. Maybe even the tank can take you. So just be careful of that part. So what I like to do whenever I get the Lord is I don't push directly behind the Lord, because Aamon's not going to be very useful that way. He has to get relatively close, and normally when a Lord is out, the mages are just going to spam attacks towards the Lord, so standing behind it is very dangerous for Aamon at this point. So what I'll normally do is I'll try to push the side lanes a bit and get a little bit of split push action going, and as I start to get better vision on the enemy, I'll converge in towards where the Lord is and try to clean up, or just try to kill anybody who's solo or trying to split push to other lanes. And I found that's pretty much Aamon's bread and butter. When you try to get the Lord, you really don't want to try to be in the midst of things. It's really not going to work out late game. And yeah, pretty easy cleanup. You kill most people. Your biggest threat is probably a tank. You have to wear him down, and obviously people like Sylvana who can hold you in place are gonna be a big problem. You know, most times it works out. So when playing Aamon, he pretty much only does jungle, so I'll always get the jungle boot, and I like to get ice retribution because Aamon doesn't, I mean, his camouflage is an escape, but he doesn't really have a lot of escapes because he can only really dash towards the enemy. So I like to get ice retribution just to make it a little easier to catch up with them. Fire retribution is an option, but like, come on, who uses that? Nobody. And the bloody retribution is okay. I haven't used it personally, so I don't think it's worth having. I think ice is probably the best thing worth your time. So for my first item, I like to start with the Genius Wand. The Genius Wand basically just gives you magic penetration, and it helps for killing squishies in the early game. It's not really going to help you kill any tanks, but with this item, as long as you're just about equal to other teammates, you should be able to get kills with a couple basic attacks and an ult. Okay, next up is the Glowing Wand. So the Glowing Wand is just going to be Aamon's anti-heal item, which allows him to kill tanks and DPS heroes and shield generated heroes a lot easier. But beside the obvious anti-heal properties, I like the health boost that he gets from this. It makes him a lot more sustainable and allows you to just go in and out of fights as you need to, and once the enemy's health gets low enough, you want to go for a kill. Okay, now we have the Stallium Scythe. Basically, the Stallium Scythe just gives Aamon a lot of sustain, and it's just a kind of a jack of all trades kind of item, giving him mana regen, lifesteal, cooldown reduction, and magic power, as well as some true damage. It's a great overall item for basic attack magic users. I don't see why you wouldn't want to use this. Aamon's basic attacks are basically his bread and butter, so it's pretty straightforward item. You pretty much need it. So next item to build for Aamon would be the Blood Wings. The Blood Wings got a huge buff, and now they give you a shield and they add movement speed before the shield and increase movement speed after the shield. So it's a great item, very needed once you get towards the late game, because everybody's really strong and Aamon relies on getting close to the enemy. So I find without this item, you're a little bit too squishy to engage in fights. So definitely get this one. Sometimes I even get this early instead of the Genius one, depending on the team I'm against. But if not, I'll get it second to last. So for my final item, I like to build the Holy Crystal. The Holy Crystal is just a cherry on top for Aamon. Just gives him a ton of damage so he can get his kills. There is an option of using Sky Piercer instead. I find Sky Piercer is kind of redundant for Aamon because his ult already has a bit of a execute effect because it does more damage based on health loss. So I don't really find it worth to use that. The Holy Crystal is a better option in my opinion.